Hi everyone, this is Becky Winter with iHeart Art Studios, and today I am going to be showing you how to make this very cute bowl that you can use to put in jewelry or little knickknacks, little tiny things that you find. I don't know what you would want to put in a cute little bowl like this, but I'm going to show you how we can make it. So what I've done by creating this bowl is I've used some newspaper, and I used scissors, which you may or may not need. Well, you will need it. I used some stick glue. I also used a little bit of glue and water mixture in a cup and a pencil. And then I just had some markers around. So they don't have to be a specific type of marker, but they are handy to have around. So the first thing that we're actually going to be doing to create this cool bowl is using our newspaper. We're going to cut it up and we're going to be making little paper rolls. So this is something that can take some time. You could always recruit some little people from around your house to help you with rolling these. I'm going to show you how we roll them and then how we put them together. So there are a couple different sizes of paper rolls that you can create. You could use magazines, old books. I'm using newspaper because it's something that I have around. And in order to get these nice and tight, these tiny ones here I used a toothpick with, which was a little tricky. And so I decided then to do it with a pencil, just a standard pencil, and it was much easier. I will say my pencil does not have an eraser on it because sometimes when there is an eraser, there's a little, it's not as smooth all the way at the end, and that can definitely make this a little bit trickier or not, but I'll show you. We're going to make some paper rolls, and then I'm going to show you how we put them together to make a cool basket. And you could make this into a bigger bowl. I just wanted to have a little example done before I showed you how I do this. So, if that makes sense. All right. So, actually, probably will need a toothpick too, now that I think about that. But, okay. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to angle the camera down so you can see what's happening here on my workstation, and then we will make our paper things. Okay. Oh, there we go. So with my newspaper, you can use any type of newspaper that you have around. I have newspaper ads, regular newspaper, anything. Some of them are different textures and different widths, and that is totally fine. But what we want to do is we want to cut them down into smaller pieces. So basically, if I'm going to take this ad, I'm going to cut the end of this off. So I'll use the scissors here. I'm going to cut the end off. I just wanted to apologize for not posting videos very much this week. I have had a very busy week trying to accomplish some things around the house, and just did not have time to get anything uploaded. Okay, so I have these all. I have it cut. Newspaper is pretty thin, so it's kind of cool that you can cut a big chunk like this. Now I'm just going to cut these in half again. I'm going to show you how we roll them. And there are a lot of different things that you can make with rolled paper crafts. And I think it's so fun to do things, to create things out of like recycled goods. So here's some like this. I'm just gonna cut the edge off of this newspaper right here where it's. Now, if you have a different way of cutting, that's totally fine. This is just something that I figured would work well for the video. All right. Have you ever done anything like this? Have you made paper beads before, or have you made paper baskets out of using newspaper or old paper? Please let me know. All right, so now this is really long, so I'm going to actually cut it in half here. And you might wonder, don't you want the papers to be long? Well, we do and we don't. So I'm going to show you how we create the paper rolls after we get our paper cut. So here's that. And then I'm actually going to cut them again right down the center. And these rolls will still be pretty long. All right, there's that. And here's this one. So I've got all my paper rolls. I've got a lot of it here. So I'm just gonna move these out of the way. Now, it is kind of handy, I found, to have a little box nearby. And you can just store either your papers in here. So if I wanted to use the rest of these to make more, you know, if your box was big enough, then you could put these in the box. And then you can just make a bunch of these little rolls. So I have pre-made a bunch because we're gonna need a bunch to make this little bowl out of paper. So I wanted to have some ready for you. All right, move these things out of the way. Now, here we go with our papers. So we are not gonna color our papers first. That's something that we're gonna do after we get our bowl into this shape. So in order to do this, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use my pencil. I'm gonna get to the edge. I wanna do it at an angle because it will allow the paper to just have more strength and be long. And I'm just gonna start curving my pencil like this. But as I'm turning it, I'm gonna start pulling out my pencil this way so that way I can keep rolling down. Oops, don't let it get too far in there. Like this. Roll it down like this. And then once it's sticking out and you get to the end, you can just keep it like this. Now, if we just roll it up like this, this is not gonna stay. See, it's gonna unpop. It's gonna pop apart. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use a little glue stick and I'm just gonna put a little glue here on the end, like that. And I'm using purple glue, doesn't really matter. And I'm just gonna roll it in and then I'm just gonna smooth it around and then I'm gonna pull my pencil out. Ugh, just like that. That is how we make a paper roll, and then it stays together. So I'll do another one here. Now notice, your papers don't have to be exactly cut perfect. You just wanna have a nice, get the edge in, start rolling it at the corner, at this diagonal here, and then don't forget to be pulling your pencil out as you go. Now, you don't have to have like a long stick or something like that, because we actually want to allow this side over here to get a little bit bigger. And the reason for that, I'll show you in just a moment. So here I'm going to put a little glue here on the end, roll it up. I like to just kind of turn it to smooth it. So I'm just kind of holding my hand on this spot and just turning it in the direction that it was going, just so that glue gets smooth. Sometimes your pencil will get stuck in there if you don't, if you get it in there too tight. Ugh. This is why you don't want to use a pencil that has an eraser on the end of it, because even with a smooth pencil, it can be tricky to get out. Ugh, there we go. Now, the reason that we want one side to be a little bit smaller than the other is because when we are going to be putting together our baskets, we're going to be winding them up, but I want to be able to put one side, the smaller side, into the big side, and that allows me to have a much longer piece to work with. So as we continue, then our next piece will fit into this one. And I'm going to show you the process of how we do that, because I'm going to be doing this as I go, okay? So now, if we're going to make our basket, what we're going to do, so now you've made a whole bunch of paper rolls, okay? So this is where I'm going to be using my toothpick, and hopefully I can find it. There it is, my little toothpick. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find my smaller end, and I'm going to flatten my paper, okay? Just like this, just going to flatten it. Now, you can flatten it most of the way, but leave this little bigger spot here so that way it will connect to the next one. It's a little bit, I've noticed it's a little harder to do this step if you flattened it all the way out to the end. And then you're trying to get this, well, I mean, this worked pretty well, but okay. Then the next thing I'm going to do is, just like how we were winding it around the pencil, here I'm going to use the toothpick because I want the bottom parts to be very, very tight. Can you see that? I don't want there to be a big opening at the bottom. So I'm going to just fold this up here, and I'm just going to start wrapping this around my toothpick, and just getting it started is kind of the hardest part. But then I'm just going to kind of roll my toothpick, and I'm pressing, using pressure, pressing down to keep it flat, and I want it to just roll right on top of itself. So it's just going to coil. I'm creating a coil, and you can pull that toothpick out whenever you want to, because sometimes it's easier to hold it in your fingers like this and bring it around. So you're creating that coil. Okay. Then, as you get to the end here, this is where I'm going to put this one in, and then I'm just going to keep coiling. Keep coiling, keep coiling. So there are a lot of really cool things that you can create using this method with these paper crafts. And then this is going to actually be pretty strong and sturdy because of the way that the paper is folded. Now this would not be, you wouldn't be able to make like a food safe bowl with this, but it definitely could hold knickknacks, it could hold jewelry. These little bowls could hold just about anything that was not food related. So what would you want to put into your little bowl? And you could make a larger one also. So I can't remember exactly how many paper rolls like this that this took, but I want to say it was maybe 12 or so. So my example that I do right now may not be that large. And all I'm doing is I'm flattening it as I'm coiling it. So you don't have to flatten it ahead of time. If you wanted to do that, you definitely could. But again, I found it easier to not smush the tips or the ends of my paper rolls because it was easier. Now, if your hand's getting tired and you need to take a break from the coiling, then what you can do is you could put a little glue on here. Just give yourself a break because you want to make sure that it stays nice and tight all the way through. So I think I'm doing okay so far. So I'm just going to keep going, coiling as I go. Then it is, now the reason that we don't actually color the paper ahead of time is because when you're rolling the paper, not all of it is going to be showing. So if you chose to color the paper ahead of time, the only parts that would actually be showing color are really going to be parts of this side and this side. And it's not worth all the time and effort that it would take to be coloring that. So that's why we're going to color it when we are near the end, once we get it into the bowl form. Okay, this will be the last one that I'm going to do, and then I'm going to show you how, oops, so good example here. I did not get this in there far enough, so it popped out. So get it in there good. All right, keep coiling this around, flattening it out as I go. All right, so right here, this is where I'm going to put my glue. Now, just for right this moment, I'm just going to stick some of this here, but I'm actually going to be using liquid glue. So let me grab that. Now, this is liquid glue and water. This is my homemade Modgepodge, and I just keep it in a cup like this with a popsicle stick. And all I need to do then is just stir it up a little bit. And then it is pretty handy. You can just kind of put a little bit in here with your finger and then just kind of smooth that a little bit. So now I have my roll. So this is what I'm going to be using to create my bowl. And look at that. It's about the same. So now you probably want to wait until this is totally dry. And actually you could use liquid glue for this. Maybe not the Modgepodge mix, but use just pure liquid glue for the end because you don't want it to come apart. Now, very slowly and delicately, because you don't want to go too far, you're going to slowly start pushing out the center. But you don't want to push out too far or too fast because you don't want the paper to become uneven or pop out of place. So as you can see, I'm slowly forming this shape where it's going to look like a bowl. A little tiny baby bowl, like that. So, you see how they both kind of push out a little bit? Now, it will be important, if you want it to set nice on the table, set it flat on the table and just kind of press to make sure that it sits how you want it to. You can make some adjustments if you want it to be taller, then you can go ahead and push it out more. If you want just to have a small spot here, you can do that, where it sits like this. But I kind of like to make sure that it's a little bit more flat because I want it to be sturdy. So I'm just going to press down here and just kind of forming it, and that will be my little bowl shape. Now, oh, I kind of smushed it down a lot. Here. Okay, there we go. Now, you can definitely add more coils around and around, and you could make this much larger, and then you could have a nice flat area. So, what I'm going to do at this point is now is when I'm going to pull out my markers. So, now the markers that I'm using, these are more of an alcohol ink marker, but you could use, actually, let's just use regular markers. Yeah. So I'm going to grab red and blue and green. And I'm just going to color the newspaper, the paper that's in here. So you can color this however you would like. You could make patterns on it. You could do anything special. I'm just going to do a quick color just so I can show you the rest of the process also. So I'm just going to do kind of a pattern where it's going to be a green, and then I'll do blue, a little blue here. Oh, and I don't want to forget the inside. Got to color that inside too. It is very interesting to color with markers on a newspaper that's folded up like this. So you might need to take your time, but you need to make sure that you're holding your bowl very, very gently because you don't want it to be breaking apart on you at this stage. So there are little lifts on the inside, so you can take your time if you'd like to and really color each of those little paper pieces. All right, that, one more here. You could also use Sharpies for this, if you have Sharpies on hand. All right, now, I did like I did have a little bit of black in my original one here. So I can do some black here on the bottom if I wanted to. I did see a cool bowl when I was looking at ideas online, and it wasn't necessarily a paper bowl, but the whole inside was black. So that was kind of a neat thing. You could even draw little loops on the inside or just black here on the top. Okay, so here I've added my color. Now, I did not do a great job coloring this. I went more so to do it quick so I can show you the next step. Now, when you're here, pretty much the only thing that you have left to do is you want to make sure to put some sort of coat or sealer on it so that way you don't have to be as gentle with your little bowl. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you can use a baggie to set your piece on. And the reason that I wanted to use a baggie is because if the glue is sticking to it, it will come off the baggie much easier than off of a table. So you could also be working on newspaper, but again, the glue will probably stick to the newspaper. So just having a little sandwich-sized baggie nearby, it's handy to be working on. So now I'm going to take my Modgepodge mix, which is just glue and water, 50% glue, 50% water, just standard school glue. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to drizzle a little bit, and I'm going to use my finger and just rub that around like this. Drizzle a little bit on there and rub it around. And you're going to get a little sticky with this, but that's okay. Now, you don't want to put, you don't want to dip it in the glue, but you can get a good amount of glue on your piece. But I would suggest that if you're gonna really put a lot on at once, because you might want to do a couple layers of glue, that you, on a nice day like today, you could set it outside to dry, because you don't want the newspaper to stay too wet for too long. Otherwise, you could risk getting a little mold, so you don't want that. So I'm going to get this glue on here. And just kind of swirling it around, making sure that it gets onto all the little pieces of newspaper. And just make sure it's nice and smooth. Now, when you're using a glue water mixture like this, the glue will dry clear, so you won't see it, even though it has a white color to it. So here is when you could go wash your hands, or just wipe them on your art apron if you're wearing one, like me. And then you just want to have it dry. You want it set out and dry. Check it after a little bit. There might be little pools that you need to smooth out again. You can also flip it upside down and have it dry like this. Now, if the glue does dry to the plastic baggie, it's really easy to just pop it off, so that way it won't actually really stick too much. You might have a little bit of glue residue that you see, but you can just kind of smooth that out with your finger. And then when you are done, you have a cute little bowl like this, and then you can go ahead and you can put, oh, let me find something cute that I can put in here. I can put, what can I put into my little, here I've got some cute little things here. Little sharks. Oh, no, they're too big for that. Some little, that doesn't work either. Hang on. Here we go. So, a couple pair of jewelry here. You could put some jewelry in your little bowl, like this. And that way you could keep that in your bathroom, you could keep it on your dresser, just somewhere where it's just kind of a cool little piece that you've created out of recycled newspaper or magazine pages or book pages. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to create this product or this little craft. If you did, let me know in the comments. Let me know how it went, if you ran into any issues or struggles. But most of all, please make sure to subscribe, and that way you can be notified whenever I post new videos. And thanks so much for watching, and we will see you later. Keep creating.